Lesson 7.2, Writing and Solving Proportions. A proportion is an equation that states two ratios are equivalent, which means they are equal to each other. Cross products in the proportion A over B equals C over D, it has cross products AD and BC. Cross products are when you multiply the numerator in one fraction by the denominator in the other. Scale model is the dimensions of a scale model are proportional to the dimensions of the actual object. The scale gives the relationship between the model's dimensions and the actual object's dimensions. On Tuesday, you paid $7.47 to rent movies. On Friday, you rent 5 movies for a total of $12.45. Each movie costs the same amount to rent. How many movies did you rent on Tuesday? To find out how many you rented on Tuesday, you need to write and solve a proportion. They set up a little table to show you what you know. Tuesday, the cost was $7.47. Friday, the cost was $12.45. On Friday, you know you had 5 movies. But on Tuesday, that's what we need to find out, how many movies you rented. There's a couple ways you can do it. The way they're going to start is they're going to put the cost as one fraction, and then the number of movies as another. And you can see this is actually the way that the table looks. We just made these into fractions and set them equal to each other. The numerators are going to be Tuesday, the denominators are going to be Friday. Now you could switch this up if you wanted to and have Tuesday as your as your one fraction, Friday as your second, cost as your numerators, and the number of movies as your denominators. And that would look like this. 47. This is the cost of Friday. $12.45. Don't know Tuesday, and this is 5. Again, it doesn't matter how you set it up as long as you have, there's a relationship between the numerators, there's a relationship between the denominators, and then the fractions have a relationship. There's 2 ways to solve a proportion. The first way is, well, how do you clear the side that's being divided by 5? The opposite is to multiply by 5 to both sides. That's going to clear the 5's on the right, and now we can solve the fraction times 5, which is 3. The second way to solve a proportion is to use cross products. Because remember, the cross products of a proportion are equal. Again, you take the numerator of one fraction and multiply it by the denominator in another and set it equal to each other. For example, this would be 4 times 10 and 8 times 5. If we go back to the movie problem, we had $7.47 over $12.45 set equal to x over 5. We could have done $7.47 times 5 is equal to $12.45 times x. Now you would have to multiply this together, which is $37.35, and set it equal to $12.45 times x. Divide by 12.45, and you get 3. So you use your cross products, and then you divide. So cross products, divide. That's the steps when you're trying to solve a proportion using cross products. Let's try this one. So we have 10.4, 10 and 4 tenths times n, and then 22 and 1/10 times 41 6/10. Let's multiply what we can. So 22.1 times 41.6 is 919.36. 919 and 36/100. Now, remember my steps. So you did my cross products. Multiplying is just simplifying. I'm going to count it as a step because you just need to simplify. And 2, divide each side by the same number. And that's the number that's on the side with the variable. So divide by 10.4, you get 88 and 4/10. 88.4. Pause the video and try 1, 2, and 3. Find the missing variable. For number 1, we do 15 times 2, and then 3 times a. That's 30 equals 3a. Divide by 3 on each side. 10 equals a. 28 times 4, 24, equals 16 times m. 28 times 24 is 672. So we did our cross products. Now we're going to divide by the coefficient, the number next to the variable. You get m equals 42. Number 3, 45 times 52. And if you want to just multiply right away, you could, and just put down 2340, so 2,340 equals 117x. Divide by the coefficient. The answer is 20. Please try 4, 5, and 6 if you haven't done so already. 32 times 5, 160, equals 20 times t. Divide by 20. T equals 8. 7 times 90 equals 630. And that's set equal to 15 times q. Divide by 15. 42 is your answer. Oops. Do 31.2 times 0.5. You get 156 equals 2.6 times b. Divide by 2.6. That's your coefficient to both sides. And you end up with 6. And just be careful, because if you would have noticed, I forgot to put my decimal point, and the 156 was 15.6. So be careful about that. Proportions work well with scale. Scale is a ratio. So for example, when you're building a model car is a three-dimensional object. You're building a model car that has a total length of 6 inches. The scale of this model is 1 inch to 1.5 feet. There's the scale. You know that because of the word 2. So the scale is set equal to the length of the model car over the length of the actual car. There's the scale. So when you set up your proportion, always put the scale as its own fraction. Again, you could do it the opposite way, where you put it as numerators. That's fine if that works for you. So the length of the model car was actually 6 inches. You don't know. Again, that's a variable. I think it's L. You don't know what the length of the actual car is. So let's set up our cross products. 1 5/10 times 6. They actually go right to it. 1, which actually is 9. And that equals 1 times L, which is just L. So 9 equals, and that's an L. Length of the actual car is 9 feet. Remember to label. When we're talking about scale, we have to label it somehow. So that should be feet. Answer is D.